Alright, so now I'm going to explain to you the bottom half of this. So the top part is just looking at the closing price. When the closing price of the bar, when the closing price of the bar breaks out of the opening range high or low. Alright, now this one on the bottom, let me just bring this over here. They're both crossover solvers, but rather than looking at the closing price, this one is looking for when the whole entire bar breaks above or below the opening range. So it's looking at, if it's a bar is breaking above the opening range high, what would that mean? That would mean the low would have to be crossing above the opening range high. So we need a low for a long and then a high for a short. So the high of the bar, to get a short signal, the high of the bar would have to cross the opening range low. Okay, I think that's pretty self-evident there. Now, that saved us 2 bad signals here this past day, Friday. But, you're going to get a lot worse entry with this setup. You'll eliminate quite a few bad trades, but on the good trades, you're going to get a lot worse entry. So, it depends on how you want to do it here. And now, the next problem, which is why I've had to create all this other stuff here, is on that next bar, after you get a closing price below, it'll have to be the next bar on which you get the actual high of the bar breaking down below the opening range low. Now that bar will probably half of the time be an up bar for a short, and then vice versa for a long above the opening range high. So it depends on whether you want to enter short on an up bar. If you don't, then I have all this logic in here built. We're using the bar direction solver. And the bar direction solver can do more than just show you when you have an up bar or a down bar. You can do, some pretty neat stuff with it. So I recommend looking this up on the YouTube channel and on the Shark Indicators website. So the only problem is it's not showing you a doji, okay? So that's what I've done here. You can solve for a doji one of 2 ways. You can use a comparison solver, which is what I've done here, and use a closing price for indicator A, and then use the opening price for indicator B. But to find the open, you need to use the SI chameleon, which comes with BloodHound under SI, and select open. Keep the look back set to 1, which is the way it comes default, and select the open. And then we want to find when the open is equal to the closing price, so we want to use the neutral, okay? And we want the neutral set to 1 for both long and short, so that we are, let me just connect it. So that we are signaling both long and short for every doji. And then we I've connected the wrong one, but they're both finding dojis. So this is the one we were just looking at with the comparison solver. And then we will control the direction of the doji based on whether the close is above the midpoint or below the midpoint. So that's this next solver. And if the closing price, which is indicator A, and then indicator B is the midpoint of the bar, using the SI chameleon once again, select the mid SMA, which is the midpoint of the bar. If it's greater than, it gives a long. If it's less than the midpoint, the closing price is less than the midpoint, then it gives a short. Now if it's equal, which is why I've selected neutral here, it'll give both a long and a short. So connecting both of these together to find a doji direction, we have to do that with an AND node because we want both to be true at the same time. And then we'll get the direction of the doji. So that's pretty neat. Now this will probably be a rare occurrence, but I've provided the logic here just in case it does happen to come up. And the other way that we saw for the doji is with the candlestick pattern indicator that actually comes with NinjaTrader right here. And you just select doji from the drop down menu. So each one of these has a number associated with it. So whenever you have a number associated with an outcome from an indicator, you want to use the threshold solver. And you can also use the threshold solver for finding thresholds of the stochastic or RSI or whatever. But when you have a number associated with the event from the indicator, usually they'll go in ascending order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes they start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So all we know is that the doji is giving an output greater than 1, and that's all we need to know. So we just put 1, and you can go and look up the threshold solver, find out more about it. So we give a 1, and this needs to be in an ascending order. From E, it needs to ascend up, so the lowest value needs to be at E. If we just have 1, then all we need is just zeros below it, and then 1 for A. So for a long output, we want to give an output of 1 when we're at A or greater, and A happens to be 1 as well. Okay, so we want to give an output of 1 for a long and an output of 1 for a short. So that means that we'll give both long and a short for a doji when the indicator gives an output greater than 1 or greater. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. So that gives us the direction of the dojis. So now we connect both of these together, the bar direction and the doji direction, to an OR node, so that it will show us when both of them are true independently. So either or can be true, which is why we use OR node. If I used an AND node, they would both have to be true at the same time, and in that case I would get no output at all. Okay, or would I? Let's see. I think I would get no output at all. Right. So that's why we use an OR node. Okay? And now what I've done here is I've extended this 5 bars because that bar on which the crossover happens, if it happens to be an up bar when we want to go short, then I need to extend that signal forward. I don't have to extend it forward 5 bars, but that's the way it comes default. So I just leave it at 5, that's fine, it doesn't matter, because we're going to block out the rest of the signals anyhow. And then we'll reset it. We don't need a reset actually, because it's only going 5 bars, so not much can happen in those 5 bars. It's doubtful that it's going to cross back above the opening range. You know what? What if perchance it just happens to do that? So let's reset it on input opposite signal. So if it happens to go back up and cross back above the opening range, then that would give us an opposite signal, because we're extending it forward with a short signal. So if we get an opposite signal, it'll reset that. Doesn't really matter, but let's account for it anyhow. There we go. Now, so let's say we want to connect these two together with an AND node. So let's see what that outcome gives us. So you see it eliminated the up bar, okay, because it says the bar has to be going down for a short signal and it has to be going up for a long signal. Okay, so what I did now was I connected, let me do that again. I connected both of those with an AND node. But there are going to be some occurrences. See if I can find this. Just bear with me for one moment. Is that... that's not it. I wanted to account for, you know, things, certain things that might happen. Okay, like right here. Okay, we get the breakout, and then, you know, the actual signal is happening there on a down bar. It's, you know, that bar closed, it broke out, but then this whole entire bar is the first bar that is totally above the opening range high, but it's a down bar. So that's why we've extended this forward, right? And then we've connected that together with the bar direction to this AND node. Okay. But that's not a good... I'm sorry, just bear with me for a minute. That's not the example I was looking for. Right here, this is the example I'm looking for. I'm getting tired if you can't tell. This is taking me way too long. I have terrible screen recording software, so I need to do something about that. This is freeware, it's Cam Studio, and you know, I can't edit it, so I just need to get some editing software, I guess. But anyway, so in this case, we've broken back inside because of the fact of, you know, extending that signal forward. It's going to find the next down bar for a short signal. And if the down bar is inside the opening range, you know, do you want to take it or not? If you don't want to take it, then I've added in this condition here, okay, which says that at least the low of the bar has to be below it. So for a short, the low of the bar needs to be below the opening range low, and for a long, at least the high of the bar has to be above it. So if the bar is totally back inside the range, then it will disallow that short. Okay, that's what this condition is saying. So if the low is below the opening range low, allow for a short. If the high is above the opening range high, allow for a long. And if you disconnect that, then it will allow that short. Okay, so you can attach that or not attach that. And so now, let's move on further here. I am blocking these subsequent signals. So for 5 bars, I'm going to block the subsequent signals. Okay, because we don't need to be showing those other signals, because if we use this to enter the trade with, then it's going to enter on the first bar, so there's really no point in showing those subsequent signals. And then we can reset the signal blocker with this, and I'll show you why I've added this. I think that other example that I was showing you a minute ago was no, that's not it. Yeah, this is it. So do you want to allow, you get this long signal here, and then we've extended that forward. So do you want to allow another signal when the bar is actually inside of the range? Because if you don't, then just disconnect this. Okay, and then it will say that the whole bar has to be outside. So that's what this reset is for. It's resetting the blocker here. So with the signal blocker, we have the input connection and the reset connection. And we are resetting the signal blocker from the reset connection So we've chosen reset. And on the opposite signal, so this is giving us a signal when the low breaks back inside the opening range, it gives us a short signal. Okay, so that opposite signal is going to reset the blocker. Okay, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm just tired. I kind of explained this wrong. This is it's basically saying that it's going to block the next 5 signals, but if you want to stop the block of the signal when a low breaks back inside the opening range high, then it will do that for you. If you don't want to block that, then just disconnect it and it will go ahead. If you don't want to allow that, then disconnect it and it will go ahead and keep blocking those next 5 bars. Okay, so I don't know how many people are actually going to use this part of the system. And then also I did the same thing that I did above with the signal counter. If you only want to allow 1 signal per day, then you can connect this if-then node through the signal counter. And you can select however many signals you want. If you want to allow 2 signals, set this to 3. If you want to allow 4 signals, set it to 4. And then if you want to allow 5, this needs to be set to 0.9. And I'll go through and change that with all of them. Okay, so that'll do it for this template, and then I'll explain the other ones to you after this.